to be able to just sit back and I can just get on. But I want to get back to the studio for the radio shows and get back to doing our events. But we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we're live now. Winston, thanks for joining us. We're with Winston Queen from MyKingstonKids and Kevius Avery here with the Hudson Valley Current. And Shawn Berry from Lift Economy is also just joining us. I'm Chris Hewitt, the director of the Hudson Valley Current, a Kingston-based nonprofit that strives to keep money local, strengthen main streets, and share the abundance that's all around us. Today, we will be talking with Shawn and Winston about community and worker ownership, some fun and kids and things that are happening around town. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Shawn, how are you?
Hey, nice to be here. Hey, Kevius. Hey, Winston. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
Nice to see you all.
It's funny when you said Shawn Berry, I was like, I know that name. Why do I know that name? But now I see the faces because I know that guy.
I know that guy. What's up, man?
How's it going?
Good to see you.
Just for our audience members, before we dive deep into a conversation, can we do a lightning round of introductions? Just name who you are and what organization you're with. And for our audience, just say how you're feeling today. So I'm
just going to say this is the Hudson Valley Current's show, Livelihood News. It's our weekly show that happens every Friday at 5 o'clock.
All right, Chris, would you like to start?
I just did. You go ahead.
I'm Kevius. I'm with the Hudson Valley Current. And we can go down to Shawn.
Shawn Berry. I'm with Lift Economy, and I'm here in Rosendale, New York.
I'm Winston Queen. I'm the executive director of MyKingstonKids, right here in Kingston.
Nice. I'm sitting in the garden here in Kerhonkson.
Nice. Looking good, Chris.
Thanks.
So I just want to know kind of an update on you guys. As COVID is here, we're all adjusting ourselves as folks who are centered around social movements and helping the community. How are our respective organizations adjusting to these times, and what we're doing to really show people we're out there, we're active, we're ready, and we're still supporting. And we can start with the Lift Economy, then go to MyKingstonKids and circle back around to Hudson Valley Current.
Thanks. Yeah. So, well, let's see. So my team, we're a worker-owned cooperative impact consulting firm. We're working mostly nationally. Much of my team is out of California, where I spend a lot of time. Let's see. Fortunately for us, we had a fairly robust online presence. We do an online Next Economy MBA. And even though I work with a number of local groups, even so, I was doing a lot of meetings online just to not to commute and burn gas and time going back and forth. So we're pretty well set up for the shelter in place and working online. So it hasn't been too much of a transition, although I definitely lost a bunch of clients. I had, for example, 2 retreat centers closed. But our company got the EIDL and PPP money, so that's been helpful. Generally, even though we had some online stuff going on, we're kind of pivoting our product development to more online courses and content. So we started a Next Economy Movement series that's a live, very similar to this, a live webcast. We're doing some field building stuff. We have a global tree growing campaign that we're working on, getting money to people planting trees, in their communities for food, fiber, fuel, multi-benefit stuff. And then we're convening a funders network around that. So that's just I guess an example of a couple of things that we're doing online during these COVID times to kind of keep pushing forward the movement, even though we're trying to be safe during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And Winston, you follow that up with an update on MyKingstonKids?
Sure. Well, of course, when this pandemic hit, our dance parties, everything came to a stop. we tried to do one dance party over Zoom probably a few months ago, and it was hectic. It was 2 hours, and it was trying to do something like that over a 2 hour period. We're like, okay, maybe we'll just do a half hour next time, maybe even an hour, but 2 hours was way too long. I mean, I was Deadpool. It was hot in there. I got this whole suit on. It was a lot, but now we're trying to, we're starting opening things up again. We have our photography now program that was out of the Restorative Justice Center. We just finished our second session of that. That's what Star and I Grow. There's about 7 kids that are getting, in fact, tomorrow they're going to be doing their exhibit on My Kingston Kids Facebook page tomorrow by 3. So if anybody wants to check that out and see how these children have been coping with their own time during this, sitting there taking time out to just go out into the community and take pictures on their own. But August 1st, we are going to do our first Red K Reading Lounge in person. Since this all happened, of course, it's small. We got 10 kids. We want to break them down, give them a nice story. Read them a story. That's, I think the book is How to Talk About Race with Children. I think is the book that will be read to them, and it's nice. They'll get to read the book, or they'll get to hear the book. They'll be able to discuss it afterwards, and then when they leave, they'll get a copy of that book.
That's awesome.
And
So
Chris,
and that's not to mention all the radio shows you're on. You were telling me about all the meetings and boards you're on.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. My Kingston Kids only one board. Frank Waters has me on. I just got off another call. They're doing a Sojourner Truth thing, ceremony. So like I'm on that, and as we're talking, he's like, yeah, we gotta get there, talk to Chris. And I'm like, oh, what time is it? I'm like, oh wait, I gotta get on Chris's call. I was like, I gotta go. But it's just, there's a lot going on right now, and within the community, a lot of people are doing, with Chris, with Shawn, a lot of people are doing good things. And with this, it's kind of scary, because I always tell people, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I don't know what's going on with these things, so I have to abide by the guidelines. And there are people who refuse to do so, and it's like, do you wear your mask, do you not? It's like, just do it, because it's helpful. It's, even if it, like for me, I have anxiety, and when there's a lot of people, when I see now, and it could very well be media based, but like when I see a lot of people around me it's like, wait, why don't you have your mask on? Like, and it starts, it goes with my anxiety. So even if it's just to calm people down, to give them a sense of calm, get them a sense of a sense of peace, do that. So yes, August 1st, you have to have your mask. There will be masks provided for those who don't have one, but that's what we're doing right now.
Nice, that's great. Yeah, we transitioned. I think Kevius, this might be our 10th or 11th show in a row every week. And we also had a full week of money talks where we talked about money each day and had a different topic that was very exciting. So we've been shifting the way we're dealing with COVID from the digital resilience market to this livelihood digital, a stronger presence online with livelihood. Actually, we just went back to press with livelihood after taking a 2-month break because 1, advertisers pulled out completely, and 2, nobody was picking up papers. We had some newsletters that we put out, and 100 papers sat for weeks. Usually thousands will move from Adams, for example, So we've shifted a couple of times, and then recently we got into the market opening up on Broadway. It's going to be the cafe in the market called Tilda's Kitchen and Community Space, and that'll be a place. Shawn was coming to our lunches, and a lot of the members of the Current were getting excited about using Currents every week at our lunches. So we said, how about we just make this a weekly experience, and now we'll have lunch and breakfast available every day. So, we started shifting quickly into let's open up, COVID's gone, and now we're rewriting our policy again to be as careful as we were 3 months ago, because, we wanted to stop. I'm going to work a little bit more from home. And anytime we're handling food and working on our market orders, we have new sanitation procedures again. So we're shifting, dealing with it month by month, I think.
Yeah, I think what I really appreciate from everyone is that, you know, we talked about the fact that COVID really hit us, right? You all are very transparent about the hits that each company had. And I think that's important in this time as, you know, community first organizations, because we are one with the community, right? Like we take a hit just as hard as they take a hit. And I really think that stands true in a testament to how involved in the community each of your organizations are and how that social impact extends to you. So I appreciate you highlighting that connection. And I want to back, you know, being to, you know, how did your organizations come about? So Shawn, how did Lift Economy come about? And then Winston, I would love to know the backstory behind Kingston Kids. And one aspect that excites me about your organization is the fact that you market your products as services. So that really shows that you're catering to the community. So after the Lift Economy backstory, can you speak to My Kingston Kids development, and then the intention behind pitching your projects as services and why that is important?
Thanks, Kevius. Yeah, so the Lyft economy, it evolved because as a young man, I actually in my early 20s, I was fortunate to kind of stumble into business ownership, and I had a woodworking cooperative that I started in my early 20s in San Francisco, and I ran that for about 13 years as a worker-owned cooperative. So from a young age, I got to not only do something you know, that I thought was beautiful and meaningful with my hands and creating heirloom furniture, but I got to do that with a group of co-owners. So where, you know, I would sit at the board table with my fellow craftsmen and make decisions about, you know, strategy and budget and the future of the organization. So I learned a lot about how to run a business and how to operate cooperatively. And I was also involved with the movement of local progressive businesses and activist organizations. And after we had gone through a growth curve, we were a 10-person company doing about $1 million a year, and we were, you know, compared to if I was working at a different cabinet shop, we were making way more money, had way better benefits and a work experience because it was our place. We weren't working for, you know, the owner. And so I could look across the movement of other organizations and I could spot that they had specific gaps or challenges with their business model, because we had gone through so many, really learned the hard way. So it occurred to me that as a service to the movement, if we could share forward some of the systems that we were developing that were in alignment with our values, you know, how to do business in a way that's mutually beneficial and creates abundance in the environment, rather than a business that's less bad, that does like a little less harm, right? So, you know, able to understand that there's different ways that work in that context, and started sharing those out with other groups. And that, at least for me, became impactful and inspiring enough that I left the woodworking cooperative to start the Lift Economy Cooperative, and that was in 2010. So we've, you know, we're just coming on a decade here, and we've worked with probably something like 150 or so, you know, small social enterprise businesses, and yeah, you know, are able to kind of shorten some of those growth curves, right? So everybody doesn't have to learn the hard way and long, expensive time to kind of get up to a functional organization where we're able to help people kind of get up and running quicker, and then providing their goods and services to their communities. So in that sense, it's been a success.
Nice. And before you hop in, Winston, it's the 15-minute mark, and I like to break it into 15-minute segments in case you guys ever want to share these videos and make them shorter. Chris Hewitt, if you just joined us, I'm the director of the Hudson Valley Current, and this is Livelihood News. We're here every week on Friday at 5 o'clock, and today we have Shawn Berry from Lift Economy joining us, and Winston Queen from My Kingston Kids. Kevius, my friend and colleague, just asked, how did Lift Economy get its start? And now Winston will be answering the same question about My Kingston Kids. Thanks, Winston.
Thank you, Chris. All right, so My Kingston Kids is about 4 years old. Frank Waters and his wife Shaniqua, they are the birth founders of My Kingston Kids. Frank, from being from Harlem, he moved up here to Kingston about 7-8 years ago, and he has children of his own. Everybody knows Cecil Rose, that's on our radio show sometimes. She'll be on the our Red K Apparel show tonight that we're going to be doing. But it was My Kingston Kids it was developed to have a place for parents where they could go and you could immediately find out what was going on in the area for your children. And it had birthed as like the #1 resource center, so you could just go there and you can click the calendar and it'll give you everything that's going on in the immediate areas for children. Last year, around September, Frank was asked to be the executive director of Kingston Midtown Rising. So as we're driving to Poughkeepsie, he's telling me this, and I'm like, "Oh wow, that's congratulations, man. That's cool." And he's like, "So I need you to do me a favor." And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." Because that's how I met Frank. I was about 3 years ago. It was Black History Month Kingston, and it was 28 days, but it was 28 events. But Frank was at them all. And and I'm like, wow, this guy does a lot. And I was like, and then when I heard about My Kingston Kids, I brought my daughter. They were at the African Roots Library down in Bukkake, and Frank was down there too. And I'm like, man, he's down there. He's reading books. So I started to go to all the My Kingston Kids events. And then Frank's like, listen, man, you're always going to these events and you need to be on the board. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can get on. I can do a meeting, an hour a month, just to find out, because I've always been heavily involved in the production and the progression of children. I think that is one of the most important things in life is children. They are the future of everything. Without them, it's bleak. So I was highly invested in that. And then when he asked me to be the executive director, I was like, this is a perfect dream job. I work overnights at my actual full-time get paid job, and I can do this and I don't have to worry about getting paid. It's just something that it's a beautiful thing for me. But My Kingston Kids, there's 4 different programs that we run. Of course, we have our radio show every Saturday morning from 7 to 9 on Radio Kingston. It's 1490 AM, 107.9 FM. And that's just an abundance of, children-friendly content. Right now, this whole 4 months, we've been talking about mental health in children and how do we talk to them about this? Because a lot of times we don't know the answers. When kids ask, well, when are we going back to school? Or, are we going to get sick from this? Or, so a lot of times we don't know. And that's an important thing to be honest with them and to tell them that you don't know. But my children know, we don't know, we're going to find out. And we love to research. We love to do that. So that's our radio show. We have a play cafe that we would generally, when we have events, we come out, we do sometimes there'll be bead making, or it's just a lot of positive engagement. We love to have these children engage in the community. And I call them all the E's, the kids that we engage with. They're excited, they're educated, they're empowered, and they're so I always call them the E's. And as long as I feel like I'm doing that for them, Kevius, when you said that as we talked about how COVID hit us, the community, COVID hit us because it hit the community so hard. Because of the fact that without the community, we couldn't do this work, and we do this work so that we have a better future for our children. Like I said, and that's my thing. That's my drive, is to make sure that my kids have it better than. And everybody's like, well, better than what? It's doesn't matter. Better than. I want them to have it better than you, better than them. It doesn't matter. I think that these children should have better than. So that's what the Play Cafe. There's different programming. If you was to have an event, you want somebody to take care of the kids, well, we could do that. We have different a different way of engaging with the community, and we enjoy that. We have an abundance. There's 6 people on our board who are dedicated to this work. Thankfully, we don't have to have a huge board, because that's something else that a lot of people have to deal with that thankfully I don't. And it's like I said, that these people are really dedicated to this work, and it shows. These kids they're very appreciative, and I enjoy this work, and I enjoy the people that I've gotten. Like I said, I've been doing nonprofit for 2 years, and I've never been involved with a nonprofit like this before. And now that I'm seeing how things work from the inside out, I'm more appreciative of things. I'm more appreciative of the people and the time that they put in to do this. It's amazing to me. So I'm so appreciative to you guys, man. I do. Thank you for this.
Thank you. And so what you both just spoke on is this idea of abundance and ways to create abundance. And I know, Chris, Hudson Valley Current, a core mission of Hudson Valley Current is to extract and retain the abundance that is in, throughout the Hudson Valley by creating a new economy that is localized. So first, may you speak to that relationship of Hudson Valley Current with abundance? And then I would like to circle it back down to Shawn to simply answer, well, what is the next economy? As a group of economists and entrepreneurs, what is the next economy? And then, and I'll remind you of these questions. And then Winston, to follow that up, as a reaction to Shawn's piece, is how do you see kids inheriting this new economy that Chris and Shawn are creating? And what's that impact that you foresee kids having in the future? So starting with Chris, is your relationship with abundance in Hudson Valley Current?
Well, I think I've mentioned to you, Kevius, and it's pouring rain here, so if it's too loud, let me know, because I'd like you to explain Pankaki, our project in that neighborhood. So if it gets too loud, let me know. But you said extract abundance and share it, where it's actually revealing abundance because it all exists here already. And that reminds me of the Midtown Rising Connect project that just launched July 1st, where Frank Waters and I was on a meeting with Winston last night, where we're talking about the offerings of all these nonprofits and businesses and organizations that could sign up on Midtown Rising, kingstonmidtownrising.org, and say, here's what my organization is, and here's a free or reduced offering that we have. And then the Midtown community can access these free and reduced offerings. And that's an example of revealing abundance. It exists already. We want to share it. We want to pay it forward. What we're doing with our Tilda's Kitchen is another example of how generous people are with pay it forward. It makes it easy to have pay what you can. And so it's going to be pay what you can every day. And that is related to our food security initiative and helping the Current be a demonstration of how we could be generous and always provide food for people who are food insecure, for example. But there's many other examples of that abundance and generosity. But can you just tell us about how that relates to Pankaki as I mute my torrential downpours?
Yeah, so yeah, in working with Hudson Valley Current is, we're designing a system. That's what our Pankaki project is designing a system to reveal that abundance, share with those who need it. And the fun part for us is finding ways to create financial security and food security through that same exact system. So we're working with a group of, mission-oriented organizations here throughout Kingston, Ulster County, and together we are bringing that abundance to Pankaki and really tapping into an economy that existed there before and thrived before urban renewal and before big organizations came and pushed them into what they are today, which is an isolated food desert. Our big question was, how do we extract human capital? How do we empower people? How do we go to this nestled neighborhood between Kingston Point Beach and around out and really show that you are seen, you're visible, we hear you? And we really wanted to take more of an empowerment approach than a charity approach, which goes into build off of that. And be agents in an economy that normally say we wouldn't be agents. And building onto that, I think is a perfect segue into what economy we want to have next. And the next economy that Lift economy is aiming to create.
Speaking of my Kingston kids, say hi and go.
Hi.
All right. This is my son, Alex.
Hi, Alex.
Sorry, Shawn. Go ahead.
All good. Have to make space. So yeah, what is the next economy? So if we look at the root word of economy, it comes from oikos in Greek, which means care of the household, right? So if the purpose of the economy is to care for the household, how well are we doing, right? So we, and I won't spend too much time critiquing the business as usual economy or what's called free market capitalism, but really is socialism for the elite, right? So again, without going too far into problem statements, but we have converging crises: economic, social, environmental. There's really so much that could be said about what's wrong, but what's next, right? So we're calling it the next economy to leave space for emergence, but to refer to the fact that we have these converging crises. There's all this stuff that's not working out, and what's next has to be solutions that work for people. And so we have some principles that we identify with, but really we're co-participants as opposed to being, academic experts that can, completely articulate it. We're in the trenches. We're on the journey, creating it with folks like My Kingston Kids and the Hudson Valley Current and all the, the wonderful ecosystem of organizations that we have here in the Mid-Hudson Valley. But there's a couple things that I guess, some of the principles that we see in the next economy is instead of it being, less bad or fully extractive, thinking about solutions that are mutually beneficial, that are win-win, and building companies around that, building teams around that, building cultures and communities around that, and taking things that, practices that work from one group of organizations and sharing it with others so that they can benefit from the experience. And kind of what I was saying in my earlier piece of share forward the solutions so that it works faster, better. And another reason, and this is, just happy to collaborate with everybody. And some people use the word new economy, next economy. We use the word next because it's not all new. In fact, a lot of this is really old. We're only alive as humans because we come from bands of highly cooperative people that have been living in villages and communities for millennia, and in deep reciprocity, right? Like this is only new in the last 100 years or something, that there's so much counting of money and resources. Before that, you would just give back to the collective. You would give back to the family, the village, and nobody's keeping score of who gave how much. You just put in and help out. So we support a lot of indigenous-led projects because the indigenous people are still here, and they're the holders of traditions. They're the holders of millennia of cultural solutions to how to live in a certain ecosystem, in harmony with the earth, in harmony with the seasons, in harmony with people. We're blessed to be here near Haudenosaunee country, which is, that's where I'm born and raised from. And so, we had 600 years of peace before the Europeans came in and shook things up. So there's some powerful lessons to tap back into and to find some reverence for and to re-inspire. So that's why we say next instead of new, because I think a lot of the stuff we need is old wisdom that needs to be revitalized in this time.
Nice.
Thank you. And before we circle back to Winston, I would like to toss it to Chris to welcome the folks who are just joining as we're at our 30-minute mark.
Great. Thanks, Kevius. If you're just joining us, I'm Chris Hewitt. I'm with the Hudson Valley Current, and this is Livelihood News, our weekly show every Friday at 5. Our guests today are Shawn Berry from Lift Economy and Winston Queen from MyKingstonKids. And I often enjoy talking about the just economy because it reminds me of the just transition principles that are emerging and being talked about more and more. And like we ended the show last week with something I heard Evelyn Wright, who is now the Ulster County Deputy County Executive and a Doctor of Economics. She said, transition is inevitable, but justice is not. And I don't know if it's her original quote. Shawn, you may have heard it before. And that's why I like the just economy, because what we're seeing in our country right now is we need justice, along with economic prosperity and strong main streets. We want justice and we want love. So, Kevius, you want to ask Winston that question again? I lost that.
Yeah, no problem. So Winston, and I think that's perfect as we move into a future and we talk that imperative wants to impose justice more. When we talk about the ideas of being community-centered, introducing reciprocity again back into the economy, what's the impact that you foresee on our kids as an organization that works directly with kids? They're going to inherit, all the work we're doing now. So how do you think this will impact our kids' futures in their day-to-day lives?
I think it's wonderful. It's thank you, Shawn, for segueing into that about how things used to be and how simplistic things can be. We seem to have gotten into this, it's funny that I'm talking about simplistic and I'm sitting here with two computers in front of me with both of them running, and going off of at the same time. But it's almost like it's old African proverb, they used to teach that everything they did was either honorable or dishonorable to their family. So if you think about teaching somebody that from the youngest of ages, that everything you do is either honorable or dishonorable, no matter what you do, no matter, in the eyes of any, that's how you build integrity and everything. When you start teaching children true economy and how it works within the community, you talk about, some people, like with the Martin Dunkleys of the world, and they continuously driving how much that the dollar will leave a community, and how in our community in the brown and black culture, the dollar is like 6 minutes and it's out of the community. Whereas, you go to the Asian communities, it's like 47, 50 days that this dollar circulates in their community. Now, if you take children and teach them that from the young age, by the time they even get to the point where they're looking at jobs, that's instilled in their minds. And the jobs that they do have, it's not necessarily, and I don't knock schooling. I'm real huge on education, but some of these kids don't really want to go to school. 6 hours. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. The dollar circulates for 6 hours, and that's terrible. And it needs to, like I said, when you can teach a child from an early age where that money is going. And if you give it to somebody, give it to your friend and have service with your friend. Oh, your friend does this. Okay, let's do that. Let's be with them. I see a lot of times people, because the price may be a little higher, and it's like people don't understand the money that they spend on nonsense and how much they spend on it when you got people in your community doing the same exact thing, and it may be a little pricey, but then you figure out where that, if you look down to the nitty gritty of where that money goes and who it touches and how you're going to see it right back to you. And it's a beautiful thing to teach these kids this economics. We have to teach them early, because you're teaching, basically, like we say, our future, you're teaching them to take care of us in 30, 40, 50 years from now. They're going to be the ones to take care of us. And if we don't teach them that, then we're going to be trying to teach a bunch of entitled kids that came up that just feel like they just they just have it, and it shouldn't be that way. They have to learn the power of the dollar. They have to learn, the education. Where did money come from? learn that stuff. The what was that meeting at Jekyll Isle? I don't remember what year that was, but they should learn about stuff like that. You get a different perspective, you get a better appreciation of it. So I feel with something like this, these kids are seeing it now. They're everywhere they're turning, they're going to see whether they're in the Hudson Valley Current, the cafe, whether they're at a My Kingston Kids event, they're going to see that these people around here they care for them, and how these kids view us is how we're going to be viewing them. It's a circle of life. And that sounds weird to say, but it's it's like I wish I would have coined that, but it just makes sense to take care of these children. And I'm excited to get on board with this. I really am.
That's awesome. That reminds me, Kevius, of some of the collaborations we've done with both Shawn and Winston. I mentioned to you that we applied for a grant together with Winston, My Kingston Kids, for something called Current Kids. And it's a very exciting grant. We didn't get it from the North Star Fund this time, but I think we can get it when we apply again, Winston, because the idea is teaching young people about money gets them to understand it very easily, whereas an adult doesn't want to admit adult doesn't want to admit when they don't understand money. And so we start giving them the beautiful current bills that are now much since you saw them, Shawn, that we got more security features on 100% recycled paper, so they now have silver foil on both sides.
Very nice, very nice.
And so part of that concept of the grant was also teaching them about investment. As I was telling Winston, my parents taught me when I was 12 how to invest in the stock market, and not everyone gets that opportunity. So we wanted to teach them, how do you take your currents and shop at the local stores, Outdated Cafe, Duo, Our Shop, and how those dollars impact our local economy. And then we even thought of having fun with Wall Street in Kingston, or any main street, and showing how investing in that company can make your dollars worth more or less over time, depending on business practices. And that's where, I've collaborated with Shawn. He's been an amazing consultant, teaching us about worker ownership, but also worker-led nonprofits, because there's a difference between a for-profit, there's ownership. In a nonprofit, there's no real ownership. So workers could be on a more level playing field of leadership. And in a for-profit, you can have worker ownership. That means more buy-in, more desire for the companies to succeed. And so I know, Kevius, that transition was probably what you were going to say about how we collaborate well, and how that collaboration creates a circular economy, even though actually circular economy is the term for reducing our waste and bringing the waste cycle into a circle. But it is creating this circular flow of our abundance, I believe.
And Chris, if I could just jump in real fast, when I think of the projection, right, of how kids view us, and I was thinking about your cafe. There might be times where I could spend $10 on a coffee, and when you have your child with you, your kid wants to know, why did you just buy that coffee for $10? And then when you tell them why, they see that, and then that makes, oh wow, so that means if I got a little bit of extra, that means I can give. And it just gives them that perspective. It puts it in their mind of helping out from a young age, and how much that impacts them. When these kids feel like they're putting their own in, they're contributing to this, it gives them a sense of pride. And that helps out. Like I said, it goes right back to the mental health thing. Now you starting to feel a little better about yourself. You're starting to, your people around you, you're starting to carry yourself a little bit better. These are children, and these are people who, they can get along with everybody, regardless of what day it is. They play in the sandbox today, they might get mad at you tomorrow, but they'll be back at it on Friday. They're resilient like that. So for them to see how you guys have been moving, man, I really appreciate this. And I really appreciate the work, Chris, I do.
Nice. And building on top of that, I have 6 points that you three brought up in the past few minutes, and that is, the core elements that I like to associate with Hudson Valley Current, right? And that is reciprocity, abundance, wisdom, revitalization, pride, and resilience, right? And I want to know, with those 6 elements, Shawn, As someone who is, leading the movement, help leading the movement into creating a new economy, what was the decision for you to embrace the current and become a current member? Why was that step important? And I would also like for you and Chris to reflect on your podcast together, or when Chris was featured on the Next Economy podcast. How was that experience? So starting with decision to embrace the current, why do you find that important?
So actually, Chris mentioned the just transition framework, right? And so one of the pillars there is relocalization of most production and purchasing, right? So so that's a principle I've long held, and just to maybe to make it real for people of like how does that relate to a global economy? Well, one way to think about it is, for example, in our bioregion of the Hudson Valley, and I love this word abundance for this region, because it really is an abundant region. So even though we have a nice cold, freeze out in the winter, as you can see behind Chris, and I don't know if you can see behind me, but I got my garden grown over here. I mean, it is an abundant region, right? So yeah, take care of a little soil, put some seeds in the ground, and you got a lot to eat, right? But you got to put it up, and you gotta take care of it. But so we have our particular constraints here, but the idea is that probably something like 80 or 90% of our needs as people living here, we can just get directly from our ecology, from the talent, the community in the region. So this idea of really prioritizing what we can get locally, and then using our surplus, and not our surplus raw material, but our surplus finished goods, and then trading those abroad or outside of the region, right? As like a luxury or a little nice something that you don't have local. But the local stuff is the sustenance, and so so connecting it to the current or local currency or diversified currency as a means to keep that energy local, rather than to invest in a fiat currency like the US dollar, where that money slips out, very quickly. So it's a resource focusing or conservation strategy. So that's why I support the current and local currency, and this idea of cooperation amongst local currencies, right? So there's even a movement of, okay, if I have my currents, then maybe I can trade them for some Ithacash or some Bay Bucks, or some Berkshires, because I know that resource is going to stay in that community, right? Rather than slipping off into Wall Street and the big markets, where really we can see capital is damaging, right? It's doing damage, it's doing harm to people and to the environment. So,
and that kind of exchange of currency creates regional reciprocity. And I'll do a quick station break. I think maybe a little shorter than the last one, and then get back to these notes. But this is Livelihood News. We're here every Friday at 5 o'clock. Our guests today are Winston Queen from MyKingstonKids and Shawn Berry from Lift Economy. My co-host is Kevious Avery, and we love coming to you every week about keeping money local and strengthening Main Streets. Since last week, we went to press. Winston, do you want to, I'm sorry, Kevious, would you like to show the newspaper that we got today? So we finally went back to press in print after a couple months of taking a break. And our sponsors include, yeah, I love this issue. Our sponsors, if you want to show the back, Kevious, it's Augustine Nursery. And Mariners Harbor has always been a huge supporter. Augustine Nursery is back on board. They're an amazing nursery and landscape company in Kingston, in Lake Katrine, I believe, over by the mall. And Mariners Harbor has always been a big supporter of barter, gift certificate barters, and they're open again over on the waterfront for dining. Also, Artifact has always been a huge supporter in Poughkeepsie, Community Compost. We have all their ads inside of this issue. We're going to start distributing throughout the region in Ulster, Dutchess, and Columbia. Okay, this station break is much longer than the last one. But some of our other ads included Denizen Theater in New Paltz, an amazing black box theater that accepts currents for their performances. I've been to a few shows. So pick up a copy of Livelihood if you see it at Adams or other locations that usually move a lot of papers. We're not going to be in all of our locations that move less papers. So look at it at Adams, other shopping centers, and places where you can find Chronogram and other free papers. So I wanted to just mention what you asked us about, PBS, was reciprocity, abundance, wisdom, and pride and resilience, which we all have here on this call. In fact, that's partly why we know each other, because of our passion, our ability to stay connected in community. I think our open hearts, our love for each other, and our desire to help each other succeed. And Shawn mentioned relocalizing production as a just transition principle, and all four of those things relate to relocalizing production: reciprocity, abundance, wisdom, and pride and resilience, because it's when we start to know each other, like Martin and Tamika's products that are in our resilience store, the hot sauces, the spices, like I've mentioned before. I always think about them when I'm eating my food that's spiced with their things. So we get the wisdom of our knowledge keepers through local production. And when we respect our indigenous people and pass down knowledge after generations and have hundreds of years of wisdom, we take pride in what we make. We take pride in that knowledge that's passed along, and we reveal the abundance because of the resource production. And like you said, Shawn, when we have abundance of excess production, then we could trade with other regions and have a regional pride in economy. And so I feel like that diversity of currency also relates to what's come out of COVID: mutual aid, barter, time banking. And so we've decided that the current, it's not just about a local currency that is required by the IRS to be worth $1, but it's about all those other forms of trade and exchange too, including food, and that's why we're opening a kitchen. So, all that to say, Kevius, what kind of question did you have? Same question.
Yeah, we're winding down here in the last 10 minutes, so I'll keep it sweet. But I do want to tap back into each other's core missions, our organizations. And I actually want to reference Lift Economy. Patagonia left an amazing review of your work with them, and they highlighted that your company is, and I'm paraphrasing, that there's no parallel with Lift Economy and understanding the business's social purpose and environmental purpose, right? And I want to apply this concept to all of our organizations. So starting with Shawn, what is Lift Economy's social purpose and environmental purpose, and how are you all fulfilling those? And then Winston, what is MyKingstonKids' social purpose, environmental purpose, and how are you fulfilling that? And then circle it back to Chris to talk about the amazing developments with Hudson Valley Current, Tilla's Kitchen, and everything we have in store. And again, Winston, if you want to add anything to that last point, feel free to also during this time. So Shawn, social and environmental purpose.
Thanks, Kevius. Yeah, well, I mean, social environmental purpose, I mean, we see them really as not necessarily the exact same thing, but very interconnected. So our mission is something like to co-create an economy that works for all life, or that benefits all life. So there's like this design constraint of, well, if it's a little bit harmful to somebody or some place or some being, then it's not a solution that we're considering, right? So again, instead of considering something that's less bad, like maybe a product that's recycled. Well, guess what? Recycled is really downcycled. And it only downcycles a couple times before it ends up right in the landfill, right? And all those landfills, at some point in the future, we're gonna have to mine all those landfills for all those resources and then figure out something good to do with them. So we're, you know, having this design constraint of what's actually beneficial. One of the things that I think is just not well known about is if you only consider solutions that are mutually beneficial, how much abundance comes off of that system. So you know, we're talking about the connection between social and environmental justice. Well, if we actually cared for all people and look backwards on history and paid reparations, right? Real reparations for our mistakes in the past, what kind of healing and abundance would come out of that, not just socially, but also environmentally, because when you take care of people, people take care of the ecology. You know, so we're here in the Northeast. This isn't just some accident up here where you have acorns everywhere and you have maples everywhere and you have chestnuts. And these are food forests that were handcrafted and cultivated through millennia of indigenous stewardship. It's not some accident, right? This is humans that have created this robust, beautiful ecology. So they go hand in hand. There's not just social justice that doesn't account for environmental justice. So that's really kind of how we see it as our organization, is that there's a wholeness that's missing, and we need to restore that wholeness by creating examples that touch people in their lives. So for example, we do a lot with worker ownership. Well, if you're a worker owner, you don't just come to work and you know, do something mindless and go home. You come to work and you bring your whole self and you make a difference for your community, and you actually change yourself, because you have to interact with coworkers and negotiate maybe a difference of opinion or you know, some cognitive abrasion that might come up because you're trying to collaborate with each other. And that's how we're going to get to democracy, right? Not by going to the polls once a year, but by 40 hours a week, hashing it out with our team and creating something beautiful.
Nice. Well, okay, so social, MyKingstonKids. Our mission is to, we create, produce, and promote child-friendly content, activities, and events, right? And then hopefully, like I said, in doing so, we hope to engage, educate, empower, and excite the children of Kingston and the surrounding areas. When I think of how I was thinking about this, and it was funny, as you were talking, Shawn, I was like, I want to have a no waste party. Like, I want to, when we get, like, when we get back to things, how can I have a no waste party? Like, make sure that there's nothing that goes to waste. So I wrote that down. So I'm going to talk to Frank, and we're going to make sure you're invited. Everybody's going to be invited to our no waste party. But it's, I mean, like, my daughter, it's these things, it's education, right? You know, when we are educated, we do better. You know, my daughter was she's 9, well, I almost said she's 8, she's 9 as of last Sunday. But she was teaching me about watersheds because they had to learn about it. And I was like, you know, I've seen these things all my life and had no idea what I'm looking at. I've been to the Shokan Reservoir, I don't know how many times in my life, and had no idea what I was looking at. And it took my daughter finally to, like, look, these are watersheds. And if you look, and I'm like, oh snap, like this stuff is amazing. Like these kids know way more than we give them credit for. You know, they're always watching, they're always listening, they're paying attention, you know, and for them to see how we are going to better, when, like I said, they see how we interact with them. And if they don't feel appreciated, they're not going to appreciate, you know, and kids who don't appreciate are sometimes my children, and you know, we call them things and brats and things like that, but we know that we love them, and they love it for us. But it'd be nice for them to be able to surround themselves with other children who do appreciate and understand that they are going to do better for their tomorrow. We're looking out for them. We're gonna have their back. I'm going to do what I have to do to make sure like they have better. That's my goal in this.
That's beautiful. Thanks, Winston.
And Chris, we can end that. And Chris, we can end that leg with you talking about all the amazing things Hudson Valley Current has in store, centered around social and environmental impact and purpose.
Sure. I feel like the Hudson Valley Current is an evolution, and just like money is an evolution over time, that humans have been moving forward. Like you mentioned, the Jekyll Island meeting, Winston, in 1913, that created the Federal Reserve, and that was a step toward what we have as a money system today, and it mirrors what we had invented before that. And natives in the Americas were using wampum and polished shells, and salt has been a currency. So I feel like the current has been evolving, and we've all seen it evolving together, even since Kevius joined the team 4 to 5 months ago or more. He's a student at Bard College. He's training in economics, and he thinks like not only an economist, but like an activist. So he's got his fingers in the community. He cares about people. He's got a nonprofit mindset while he's still in college. And my wife and I are nonprofit directors now. But as an entrepreneur, I had to learn, like you said, Winston, how to slow down, how to see the social impacts, the environmental impacts of my work and my life. And as a nonprofit leader, slow down so that people are on board with me. So I don't leave people behind with my excitement and my ideas. I recently launched a website called nevergonnahappen.com. It's because I have too many ideas and I just need to put them online. And I named it that because my uncle used to poo-poo all my ideas, like, yeah, BS on that one,
That's awesome, man.
Nevergonnahappen.com. It's spelt with a Brooklyn accent. And so, I just love working with the community and being in the nonprofit realm, because my life is now, my labor is supporting what I care about. I don't show up to that desk job that you mentioned earlier, where it's just like, big deal. I just can't wait to get home. I can't wait to get to work. I told Kevius, yeah, I'm staying in Kerhonkson today. I'll miss you guys, but so I love living my work, and I love working to help the community, shift the community, and reveal abundance, because that's what my mom would like. She's a Sicilian woman who loves to cook big meals. So that's my goal with Tilda's Kitchen and the community space, to provide meals that are always available for free, but farm inspired and inspired by our community. So it's community inspired global cuisine. We're putting together a chef panel now that will represent Caribbean, Creative American, Asian, and Latin cuisine. And that panel will help us evolve the menu over time as well, through tastings that our staff puts together. And so our community may say, I wish there was halal food, and we will evolve the menu to adjust to what the community wants. So the community space is similar. We're going to come together to make things, to be producers and care about each other and relationship while we make things. So I'm just looking forward to opening on August 1st, and Shawn, having you and Lisa and your daughter come by, and Winston, I haven't met your whole family yet, so we'll definitely break bread together at Tilda's Kitchen on the corner of Broadway and O'Neill at 630 Broadway.
How do you hear about this and not want to be invited? How do you not get excited about this? How do you not want to be involved with stuff like this?
Yeah. Well, we're neighbors, fortunately, so we're all in it together. And just like our economy, we're all in it together. And Kevius, on that note, why don't you take us out?
Yeah, I'll take us out on the note of, what you were talking about with going to work and really living your job. One of the big highlights of my job here is connecting with organizations like you, like yours. So I think it's important for our audience to get that same chance. If you want to connect with Lift Economy, I'm sorry, let me share my screen here. Lift Economy is lifteconomy.com. You can check out their whole mission, their clients, everything they stand for. And today we had an amazing conversation with Shawn Berry. If you'd like to check out My Kingston Kids, that is MyKingstonKids.com. You can check out all of their amazing services, their networks. I highly recommend tuning into their radio show. You never know what community member is on there. HudsonValleyCurrent.org. If you want to contribute to the local economy, we have some amazing things in our digital resilience marketplace, all from around the corner. I personally shop here every single week. And for the folks earlier, we showed some Livelihood magazine sponsorships. If you go to livelihoodmagazine.org, the July issue is now up, and you can see all related articles there. There we go. All right. So I want to thank you all for an amazing conversation, and I'll bring up our points again. A conversation on relocalization, reciprocity, abundance, wisdom, revitalization, pride, and resilience. That I had an amazing time. I don't know, Chris, if you want any closing remarks, but thank you all for this moment.
I'm speechless.
No, this was great, man. I thank you guys. I appreciate the platform. It was awesome.
Thanks, Winston.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Yeah, pleasure. Appreciate your good work.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Guys, real soon, man. We'll get together.
Yeah.
Yeah, see you around Kingston.
Yes.
Okay, bye.